Good morning, YouTube viewers and subscribers. Today's Inside Look features this engine, which until very recently I didn't even know was made in this displacement. I'm no Super Tiger engine expert by any means, but I didn't even realize that they made a 25 size engine. So when I saw this on RC Groups, I was like, holy cow, this guy was this fellow. I bought from this fellow once before. He was selling several engines. He had like 2 or 3 pictures of these, of each engine. And apparently I'll get into this later. I didn't look closely enough at it. But I didn't even realize they made a 25 ABC size engine. And this engine looked really nice in the pictures I saw. So I thought, well, what the heck, it's not all that expensive. I'll give it a shot. But as it turns out, this is kind of one of those buyer beware and really pay attention to the ad. Look closely at the pictures. And if adequate ones aren't provided, ask for more. Because now this engine came with this nut, which is not a stock nut, and it did not come with this prop washer. This is a Sato prop washer that I happen to have as a spare. It came with a couple of really funky looking hardware store washers, and it came to me exactly like this. Now this adapter was screwed on here and it was apart. It also did not come with this high-speed needle, which I did not notice in the ad. That was my bad, but there was also no mention in the ad about it missing the high-speed needle. So when I contacted the seller about this, he's like, oh, I didn't even know, I didn't even notice. So, and he said he's selling these engines for a friend. So I mean, there's a couple of things there. It's like, yeah, I don't know if I believe that, or you basically didn't pay enough attention to what you were selling, nor did I. So anyway, I found this needle. I had to take it off of my Super Tiger S25 engine, and it fit in here. But I've also got a different carb that I could put on both of those engines. But unfortunately, it doesn't make it a stock engine much anymore. So anyway, I got this engine, and I was wanting to kind of take a quick look inside at it, and I'm going to do that right here for you also, again, even though I've already done it. But the first thing I noticed is Super Tiger engine should have metric hardware. Well, as it turns out, the screws for the adapter are SAE. First big red flag, aside from the high-speed needle not being present. Now this engine looks really, really nice, so it's either been cleaned extremely well, or I don't know. I don't know what the history of it is. But if you look inside here, it looks really, really clean. Now the next thing I saw that I noticed was I turned around to look at the back plate and I noticed 2 different types of screws, and that was red flag number 3 actually. This vintage Super Tiger should have slotted screws, and it should not have hex key screws like that, so there's yet another red flag. But I want to take this back plate and the head off just to show you the condition of this engine, because to me, I thought the engine looked new. But with these strange deviations from the norm, it was either new and parts scavenged from it for some reason. Clearly it's been apart. At least the back cover has been off because of the screw mismatch. Now these screws happen to be metric, so I've got a mixture of screws on this engine, which kind of tends to suck. Now I'm not completely faulting the seller, because if I want to believe him that he was selling it for a friend, these engines for a friend, that's one thing, but I do fault him for at least not paying close enough attention to what he's trying to sell. So look inside this back cover. So this engine is either cleaned up extremely well, or it's very low runtime. Now I did put some 3-in-1 oil in here because it was feeling kind of rough, and this front bearing still feels kind of notchy even though I've oiled it in there pretty good. I'm still going to run it first before I decide about doing anything else with it. Let me pop this head off here real quick. Okay, so here comes the head. Head's coming off, and you can see it's kind of interesting because it's kind of deep in there, like it really encapsulates this really thick sleeve. I mean, just look at the thickness of that sleeve. Now if I look at the top of this piston now, I'm saying, man, I don't know, maybe it's been run. It's an ABC engine, so it's got extremely good compression. I'm having a hard time determining whether this engine's actually been run or not, but it does have a little bit of grunge around in the crooks and crannies here, so it's hard to say. All I know is it looks like a pretty decent low time engine, or if it's not a low time engine, it's a very well cleaned up one. So that's kind of my cautionary tale about this engine is when you're buying used engines online, obviously it's always a kind of a buyer beware situation, but you really need to pay super close attention to the ad, the wording, the pictures, and if something doesn't look or feel right, ask. If the seller balks at all or doesn't seem like he knows anything about the engine, it would be my advice just to pass on it. Now, this wasn't a super expensive engine, so I'm not gonna return it or anything like that. I'm gonna keep it and run it as it is. But I just thought I'd caution those of you out there, because there's a lot of used engines on the market and for very attractive prices, and it's kind of one of those things, buyer beware. Now, I have not left a trader rating for this person. Like I said, I have bought from him one time before. I'm not going to leave a trader rating because he still is supposed to try and get back with me about whether he can find the supposed owner of the engine can find a high-speed needle. I have not heard back from him, and he won't get a positive rating from me unless I get that needle and I can make my other engine whole. So a cautionary tale and a look inside of a Super Tiger 25 engine.